Decision by full bench at the Western Cape High Court in less than an hour's time, and that is the challenge brought forward to the court by the EFF seeking for that decision by the minister, or the announcement by the Minister of Finance, to be halted. They have described the fuel levy hike as unjust and unconstitutional, which has a ripple effect for those that are a working class, including the poorest of the poor, that already find themselves in a predicament, having to dig a little bit deeper into their pockets, having to provide for their families. However, now I'm joined by the TG of the EFF. I think we'll first start with the relief that the EFF is seeking. Two parts, part A and part B. If you could just detail to our viewers what the EFF is seeking from the Western Cape High Court.
Thank you very much, Nasipo and Nasipi, and good afternoon to the viewers at home. So we brought an urgent application to the Western Cape High Court. Part A deals with the interdict. We are seeking to interdict the Minister from increasing fuel from tonight, midnight, 0001. The Minister wants to increase VAT. And then the second part is actually the fuel increase itself. So when the Minister tabled the budget on the 21st of May, and we went to the committee on the 23rd of May, we made it very clear that we do not agree with the fuel levy, because what he did was to go and replace the VAT with fuel now in this instance. And we were not happy in the committee on Friday the 23rd, which is what led to us writing to him a letter on the 26th, which he to this date has not responded to the letter, but instead just acknowledged receipt of the letter itself. And in that, we're asking him, which powers is he speaking on? And that's been the basis of our argument here. So the Minister relies on Section 48 of the Customs and Duty Excise Act, which is not what is contained in the Fiscal Framework and Revenue Proposal. When he tabled his budget, he made it very clear that he wants to increase revenue by bringing a tax. And once he starts speaking that language, is the language of Section 77 of the Constitution, which clearly says any tax that gets brought must follow through the Money Bills Act. The Minister has not done that, because if he did, he wouldn't have given the 4th of June as the date for the implementation of his regulation. So we're saying it's not a regulation, because in a regulation you regulate a behavior, but in this case we're introducing a national tax, which will be a general application to everybody, and that makes it to be a money bills act. So what we see now happening is that the committee is still deliberating on the tabled budget, but the Minister is already increasing the fuel levy, which is contained in the budget, and that's what makes it unconstitutional and illegal and procedurally flawed. Because even if the committee was to agree on the fuel levy tabled, it must still go to the NCOP and go to the National Assembly to agree on the Fiscal Framework and Revenue Proposal. And even after that, there is a legislative process that must kick in, which he himself, in his replying affidavit, says that it will come around October. So count from June to October. The Minister would have counted the revenue generating out of the fuel increase when he doesn't have powers to do that. It's an overreach, because he's a member of the executive and he should allow Parliament to follow its process.
You speak of an overreach. I know that the EFF has announced as well that while it will take the Minister of Finance report, it will also try and challenge, or not even try, challenge this announcement in Parliament as well. You speak of the Portfolio Committee on Finance deliberating at this current moment. What do we know so far as the parliamentary process is concerned?
So the parliamentary process, as I stated, it started on the 23rd of May. So the Minister tabled on the 21st of May and came to the committee to now outline what he had presented to Parliament in detail. And in that committee, the EFF came up very strongly, clearly, that we oppose the fuel levy increase. Then we went into what we call public participation, which we saw public sector coming to public stakeholders coming to participate in the committee by explaining whether they agree or disagree. I can tell you that majority of stakeholders came to say the fuel levy will have a ripple effect on everybody. It's actually even worse than the VAT increase because it cuts across everybody. It's a consumption-based tax. And the companies that are in the logistics industry will not absorb that cost. They will pass that cost to consumers. And we'll see the price of bread, the price of maize meal, the price of cabbage, the price of everything going up. And that will mean ultimately that the cost of living will go up. So it's worse off in terms of the socio-economic impact that will be generated, that will be caused, as opposed to the 3.5 billion that the minister is trying to raise with this fuel levy. So we are against it because it's an economic injustice on our people. But equally, the minister doesn't have powers to do that. Even if we were in a crisis, it does not give the minister the right to go and do the wrong things. We must still follow the law. We, as members of Parliament is the highest body or office in the land that makes the law. It can't be the same Parliament now that breaks the law. And we're saying to the minister, even if we were stranded, we were in a crisis, that doesn't give you the right to now trample over the law. The law still remains the law, and it's unconstitutional for you to try to do what you're doing, particularly because you are basing your argument on a regulation, even though you say it's a tax. So he's contradicting himself. He says he's introducing a tax, but he wants to introduce it through a regulation, and that cannot be correct.
The Western Cape High Court is racing against time, and then we're hours away from 12 o'clock. Let's now play devil's advocate. What happens if the Western Cape High Court decides to not grant you the relief that you intend to seek?
They would have not granted it. And the fuel levy will go up tonight, which will mean that we wake up tomorrow, petrol will be up by 16 cents, diesel will be up by 15 cents. And we will continue to fight in the committee, as we are doing right now. There's members of Parliament in the committee that are arguing, and also we'll go to the two houses, the National Council of Provinces and the NA, to still disagree with the minister, because this is not how he should exercise his powers. But we do know that the GNU had given a signal that they will agree with this, and that's why we're standing on our own. But it doesn't mean that because it's only the EFF, and therefore it's wrong. We'll stand on the side of the poor, we'll stand on with the side of the marginalized, because this has got a very huge socio-economic impact on our people. Our people can't afford as it is. 18.2 million people depend on the grants, and those people, they will wake up and they should know that the fuel price will have a ripple effect on them, because price of everything will just go up. When you go buy at Pick n Pay is just a building which is empty. Everything that is inside is transported by a truck, by a buggy, by everything. The cabbages we find in Pick n Pay, the bread, the maize meal, the cooking oil, everything gets transported. All that cost of those transport companies will not be absorbed by those companies. They will get into the consumers, and that's why we are really fighting this matter. But equally, it is unconstitutional, so the minister must follow the law for him to want to introduce what he's introducing. And we demonstrated here in court that it can't be that Parliament is busy with the process and you are already collecting money from our poor people.
We'll unfortunately have to leave it there. The Treasurer General of the EFF, Mpile, we know that in a couple of hours, or rather in a couple of minutes, less than an hour, the Western Cape High Court will announce or share their deliberations and decisions, or ruling, when it comes to the fuel levy challenge that has been brought by the EFF against the Minister of Finance. We're hearing from the EFF TG here that should the fuel levy hike be implemented as of early hours of tomorrow, it will indeed have a ripple effect on the working class, including the poorest of the poor. However, they will continue to fight in the parliamentary process, particularly in the Finance Committee.